Most of the auto companies are reporting expanding production numbers and falling demand. Exactly the opposite from a year ago when supply was literally trickling in and prices were on a run. So, what's happening now is quite expected if one looks at the history of disruptions. But beyond this mini cycle, some significant changes have occurred or are on the anvil, driven by three major factors: electrification, technology, and autonomous driving. The disruption from electric full stack cars has led to the emergence of two distinct players: Chinese companies driven with years of experience of building super apps, and most importantly, with the four-fifth share of the global battery making, and technology startups, the likes of Rivian, Lucid, and Lordstown. Check the link to my video on why Rivian is too important to ignore in the description. The Chinese companies are looking at being the primary providers of electric vehicle mobility to the developing world and also getting access to the rich European market, thus targeting a broader spectrum of the automotive consumption. The startups are simply growing to occupy the market share vacated by legacy automakers who are simply unable to compete on the technology and experience, and are saddled by the high costs from the legacy business, primarily manufacturing, workers, and distribution, challenged further by the threats of the very model of car ownership. The buying a car outright to drive looks like turning into borrowing a car to get driven, especially as the sales of cars get increasingly innovative, from sales to finance to lease and then to short lease, that almost feels like hiring a car now. The reduction in the cost of car ownership can boost its use. Otherwise, a car is simply steel that sits idle for over 90% of the time. In the auto industry, the dealerships represented a major source of disgruntlement. Dealer markups have for years hurt customers. All that until we saw the direct sales model like that of Tesla. Doing away with dealers, making life easy for consumers, enables the automakers of the likes of Tesla to engage with customers directly, on the data of whom they rely on for their big innovations like autonomous driving. Tesla, on its part, is taking market share from the German trio of Mercedes, VW, and BMW on one end, and the US trio of GM, Ford, and Stellantis on the other. In this exchange, I'll look at simply presenting my thoughts and ideas on the changing dynamics of the global auto industry. We'll love to hear what you think and your comments. How has it got easier for the new entrants? The legacy automakers built cars embedding software into individual components and ever so increasingly relied on outsourcing, helping reduce costs, focusing on design and marketing alone, but also leaving technology advances to others. Both agility and innovation were for the taking to those who could adopt the opposite strategy, that of vertical integration. Something easy for the new entrants who could borrow the full stack business model from the tech industry. Bringing everything in house is difficult for the car making biggies, but not for the new entrants who are building everything from scratch. At a time when access to capital, brands, and scale are no longer the kind of barriers they once were. This is not to say that it's easy, for that many would not fail, but see at least half a dozen building 1 million cars per year in the coming decade. That's just my wild guess. The vertical integration may also be in line with other geopolitical and security aspects currently prevalent. But one way or the other, it's certainly the way now. And batteries that are probably half the cost of an EV is where it's the most significant. China has a dominant place in battery materials and making, and we see almost every large maker make tie-ups with miners now. I will now like to present some predictions. I see automakers continue to increasingly retain the car ownership as they pass through multiple customers via subscriptions and leases. The cars will pass through first, second, possibly the third user as the cars themselves keep improving on software updates. Should we say the Netflix effect on the auto industry via subscriptions? Going forward, we see exteriors of cars that change little, just like we see with the iPhones, making manufacturing very efficient, constantly improving on hardware costs. This will play out just as battery material recycling requirements are constantly tightened by law, improving upon the footprint of the entire activity. Technology driven new age companies will constantly lower the costs and commitment of owning and using a car. Just when, at least in the US, driving licenses are being increasingly obtained at an older age. Tightening battery material supply will increase the demand for batteries that are already out. Cars will not be valued by the age of the physical body, but the quality of software and the battery. With 90% of the nickel and cobalt already to be recovered by battery makers in the EU, 95% in 2031, and 50% of lithium rising to 80%, I see similar requirements emerge in other places. The changing models of mobility will dwindle sales and force the existing auto industry to adapt, as it already is on electrification. The auto sales will have to move from the one time sale thinking to the way digital platforms think, of engaging the customer for life. And startups that don't have anything to change about themselves, along with Chinese companies, could be in an insanely advantageous position. Smaller legacy firms could vanish. I hope you liked this video. If you did, let me know with a thumbs up below. Also, drop in your comments, which are very useful to me in shaping future content. Till the next one, take very good care of yourself.